Blog Talk Radio.
Waarmee ons moet lewe, vir guns en vir moord en vir ryp. Ek smoeg vir die bad news, vir Zuma en sy views, van ons op TV moet kyk. Ek wil nie meer hoor hoe ons tieners begrawe, oor niemand hul stuur aan die wet. Ek wil nie meer leef van affirmative action, of beklei om te hou wat ek het. Gee vir my 'n nuwe gees, 'n koortsplessie en 'n tallerij, wat nie kieten en skryf en sê, vir die mooi van ons land en ons reg om hier te kan bly. Ek stiek vir Malema, sy leuns en sy sê maar, ons hou maar ons mond en betaal. Ons kruip weg in kampe, vol blind vir die rampe, en bid dat die Heer ons omhaal. Daar's Winnie Mandela, wat mense verbrand het, maar nou wil sy huil in haar hand. Die staatskas is leeg en die ANC saai verwoesting en pyn deur ons land. Gee vir my 'n nuwe gees, 'n koortsplessie en 'n tallerij, wat lief, kieten en skryf en stry, vir die mooi van ons land en ons reg om hier te kan bly. Vir die grond, waar sy kinders kan bly. Maar sy huis en sy lande is nou in die hande van die vyand teen wie hy moes stry. Ons kinders verstaan nie, waar kom ons vandaan nie, al erfenis is uitgewis. Geen volkslied of vlag nie, en geen erewag nie, vir die helde wat daar nie meer is. Gee vir my 'n nuwe gees, 'n koortsplessie en 'n tallerij, wat lief, kieten en skryf en stry, vir die mooi van ons land en ons reg om hier te kan bly. Gee vir my 'n nuwe gees, 'n koortsplessie en 'n tallerij, wat lief, kieten en skryf en stry, vir die mooi van ons land en ons reg om hier te kan bly. En ons reg om hier te kan bly.
Welcome to Radio Free South Africa, brought to you courtesy of Rage Against the Regime podcast. This is your host, Karen Smith. We had some technical problems on Saturday, which I'm hoping will not plague us today. Our guest today is Dr. Dan Roodt, who is speaking to us from South Africa. He is a true patriot who, like the few other South Africans who are brave enough to speak out against the repressive ANC regime, has had his life turned upside down by court cases and persecution. He has, however, refused to be beaten down and speaks and writes about the atrocities happening in South Africa. Welcome, Dan. Hello, Dan. caller from the 111 area. Is that Dan? All right, we are experiencing problems again. It's a normal thing from when you speak from South Africa. So let me just tell you about some of the things that have happened this week in South Africa. There have been, as usual, riots and problems and burnings and disasters. There have been three murders that I know of whites in South Africa this week alone. But more attention is paid to the fact that Cecil the lion has been killed by an American hunter. Now, this is sad, and I agree that it should not happen. But it is even sadder that the press refuses to pay attention to the people who are being slaughtered mercilessly in South Africa. For me, it is a terrible thing that nobody pays attention to the fact that people are being raped, murdered, shot in awful ways, and yet nobody in the world is paying attention to that. Do you need to be a lion? In order for the press to care about your life? But I see in this country as well, how many people have Planned Parenthood murdered for body parts? How many babies? And now they are campaigning to declare that a baby after it is born is not a person. So it can also be harvested for body parts. What is wrong with the world that we live in? I cannot believe that Mitch McConnell refused to defund Planned Parenthood. People's lives do not seem to matter at all today. We see Black Lives Matter posted everywhere. Well, it doesn't seem to me that anybody's life matters. Whether you're South African, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're yellow or green, your life does not seem to matter one single bit to the powers that be. And we have been calling for a long time for people to look at South Africa to see what is going to happen in this beautiful country of USA. And now, because people did not pay attention, we see exactly the same things happening here today. There is the knockout game by the blacks where they attack in groups any unsuspecting white person and knock them out and leave them hopefully dead. We see that people in this country are being murdered by the illegal aliens who are invading this country, being murdered in the same way that blacks are murdering whites in South Africa. And still, nobody seems to be paying attention to what is happening in that country. Every white country in the world needs to be looking at what is happening in South Africa. Hello, caller from the 872 area code. You're live on air.
Hey, Karen, it's Bobby. I was just calling in to pretty much listen. Yeah, because it's probably really, really noisy where I'm at because I'm in my work truck right now.
All right, and I'll just as always, we are having a problem getting our South African guest on. They have problems like you cannot even begin to imagine in the USA. They have rolling blackouts because the electricity system in South Africa is controlled by the state. And since 1994, when the black ANC government took over, there has been no maintenance carried out on the power stations and no new power stations built. So our poor brothers and sisters in South Africa are suffering from what the state calls rolling blackouts. They just choose an area where they turn the power off for up to 12 hours at a time. And that means that you cannot charge your cell phone, you cannot get online, you cannot do anything once your batteries have run out. So it is a terrible problem for these people, and I admire any South African who is up to the challenge of trying to get on air in the United States. It is a very, very difficult thing for them. I see I'm still trying to converse with Dan at the same time as talking to you and trying my best to get him on the show. But it is extremely, extremely difficult for South Africans to do that. They do not have the same kind of unlimited data on their phones, on their PCs, on the internet as we have in the United States. They pay through the nose for limited amounts of data, which do not last them very long. So we need to understand that it is expensive for them and that they are heroes. They are absolute heroes for being willing to come on shows like this and speak out against the terrible things that are happening to the whites in South Africa. Dan Roodt is a true hero. He has been doing this for a very, very, very long time. And he has been vilified and taken to court and accused of racism for speaking out on behalf of the whites in South Africa. And yet, in my opinion, he is an absolute hero and a fantastic author. He writes on Prague.org, which is their website. He writes articles about everything to do with South Africa. He is a fabulous, fabulous author, and you really need to go to their website. That's PRAAG.org and read about what is happening in that country every day. And if you are a new listener, there are some sites that I would suggest to you to catch up on what is happening in South Africa. They might scare you, and the pictures are horrific. But you really, if you are interested in what is happening there and in what is going to happen in this country and in all white European countries that are being invaded by the refugees from Africa, you need to go to these websites. There is one called Censor, as in censorship, censorbugbear.net. This is run by a Dutch journalist who worked in South Africa for a very, very long time and has spent the rest of her life reporting on every single murder in South Africa. The pictures on there will scare you and will horrify you, but it is a true image of what is happening in South Africa today. There is another website called Afrikaner Genocide Museum. If you are faint-hearted or get sick easily, do not go to that website. But if you really, really want to know what is happening, you need to have a look at that website as well. And then, if you would like to help people in South Africa, it is a very hard thing to do because the Postal Service in South Africa has been in chaos for the last 18 months. There have been strikes, they have burned post offices, they have thrown the mail in the streets. And even if your help manages to get there, there are two things against it. The blacks will steal it at the post office, or once your donation gets to whoever you are sending it to, the person receiving it has to pay tax on it. So it is a very hard thing to send goods to South Africa in order to help the dispossessed whites there. The best thing that you can do is help them financially. And my charity of choice is South African Family Relief Project, who have a website and are also available on Facebook. They have a donate button, and you can be absolutely assured that every penny donated goes to the dispossessed whites in South Africa. They are not one of these places that pay huge salaries to their people. In fact, I know the CEO of that charity, and I know that on Christmas Day, she and her husband shared a tin of tuna by candlelight, and that was their Christmas dinner. So you can be assured that they are not taking a single thing out of the donation in order to help themselves. Also, I am trying to bring a family from South Africa over to the States, and we are short a very, very small amount in order to pay their airfare to get here. We have paid the cost of their visas. We have given them money to support them while they're waiting for their tickets to be available. And if you would like to help pay towards that, please would you pay into PayPal. It's Cook, C for Charlie, O, K, S for Sugar, 595 @yahoo.com, and you will be saving 2 people's lives. You have to understand that the exchange rate between South Africa and here is approximately 12 rands to the dollar right now. So any donation you make to a charity in South Africa is a small amount for you, but a huge amount in South Africa. You can feed a family of 4 on $20 a week. They won't eat like kings, but they will be fed. So if you are prepared to give up 1 takeaway or 2 cups of coffee, you can help an entire family in South Africa. That, again, is South African Family Relief Project, who are desperate for donations. And the reason for the desperation is because there are no donations allowed to white charities in South Africa. The BBEE laws state that unless a charity is 100% black, and if you donate to it, you will then be penalized on your BEE score and will not be able to get any government contracts for your business. Now, that does not just apply to your business. It applies to any supplier of yours. So if you are a printer, your paper supplier, your ink supplier, your transport delivery person, the people that you sell your books to in the stores, they all have to be BBEE compliant. And BBEE compliant means that your company must consist of at least 80% black employees, whether they are qualified for the job or not. It also means that your company, a small company, a private company, needs to be 51% owned by a black person, whether you know them, whether they are qualified, whether they work. It doesn't make any difference. You have to have a black partner in your business. There are 119 race-based laws excluding whites from the job market. And not only the job market, but from any social services, anything at all that could help these poor dispossessed people. The government has cut off any aid to them whatsoever, and it is a very, very hard thing for them. There are approximately 20 to 25% of the remaining whites in South Africa living in dire, dire poverty. They have lost their jobs, their homes, their vehicles. They have no money to feed themselves, nowhere to live, and no way to send their children to school. It is winter in South Africa now, and a very, very cold winter by all reports. These people don't have blankets. They don't have homes. They need help desperately. So I'm hoping that my American listeners will step up to the plate and feel compassion for these poor people who have got no means of aid whatsoever. The hospitals in South Africa are in total disrepair. They have no beds, no sheets, no blankets, no medicines, and no food. So if you go to a hospital in South Africa, you need to take your own mattress, which they will put on a floor in a corridor, and your own blankets, and your own food, and your own medicines. So from my point of view, it would appear that going to a hospital in South Africa is a death sentence. But people are desperate. They are absolutely desperate for help. So they go there. I saw a picture on Facebook this week where a man went to have his appendix removed. He was cut open from his breastbone to his hips, and they didn't even stitch him up after the operation. He was just returned to the ward with absolutely nothing done for him. There was this huge, gaping wound. His family have tried to help. They have tried to transfer him to another hospital, but unfortunately, if you're white in South Africa, they don't even want to take you in a hospital. There have been cases where people have been taken to hospital by ambulance, and the hospital is now being sued because the staff, the doctors and the nurses, refused to accept the person into the ward. They just said that they were on a lunch break, and so they did not help in any way at all. Other people have been left to give birth in the waiting room. It is a horrific situation in that country, people, and it is coming here if this illegal immigration is not stopped. And the thing that I find hard to understand is why it is being allowed here. It is the same in South Africa. They are flowing over the borders into South Africa from Zimbabwe and Mozambique and receiving all the help that the government is able to give them, but not the whites. The whites receive no help whatsoever. So it is up to us as fellow human beings to extend a helping hand to the people, the white people of South Africa, because the black people are receiving plenty of aid from all over the world. Everybody thinks it's politically correct to help little black children, but they do not at all want to help white. So please, people, next time you get a Burger King burger or a cup of Starbucks coffee, please realize that that amount of money would feed a whole South African family and save them from starvation. Dan is still battling. I don't know why, but he is battling incredibly hard to be able to get in. So I'm going to try and talk to you some more until he is able to get online. Sorry, folks, I'm still trying to help Dan because he has an important story to tell, and for me it is very important that he gets on. I'm being told that he can connect via Skype direct, but I'm trying to get instructions on how to do that. Dan, I see you are still logged in, and I know you can hear me, so if you will hold on a few minutes, I'm getting directions from one of the co-hosts of Rage Against the Regime, and he is trying to tell me an easier way for you to connect to the show. I have also seen today an awful lot of stories that are frightening me about South Africa. There is a political party called the Economic Freedom Fighters who are led by a firebrand young black South African. his name is Julius Malema. And Julius Malema is an absolute frightening person. If he gets into power, there is going to be a slaughter of whites in South Africa. Sorry, people, I really am trying to help him. It appears there's no Skype button to click on our show. So I'm really battling with three people, trying to talk to them at the same time and get our guest on. But I'm battling with this. I don't know where to go from here. So if you'll please just excuse the silences, I am really, really trying to help. I'm sorry for the silence, people. I am holding three conversations off of the air right now, and trying my best to get Dan Roodt, our guest, on the show. As I have said before, many times, it is incredibly difficult for South Africans to log into this show due to many reasons, and they battle, and I'm trying to help, but I'm seeming to hit against a brick wall. If you will just bear with me, we will get Dan on air today. I'm really sorry about this, folks. I don't know what the problem is, but I do know it's a South African problem, and there's not much I can do about it. So if you would please just be patient, I'm really trying. This week, there was a protest at Stellenbosch University. They are complaining that the students there are taught in English and or Afrikaans. And Stellenbosch, which is one of the better universities in South Africa, has always been an Afrikaans stronghold. And the language that students are taught in at Stellenbosch has mostly been Afrikaans. It is one of the best universities in Africa. Now, unfortunately, together with the outcries about the statues and the flags and the national anthem in South Africa, the blacks have now started complaining about being taught in Afrikaans. Now, for me, the answer would be, don't go to an Afrikaans university. But they go there and then disturb all the other students by screaming and shouting about the fact that they're being taught in Afrikaans. Would it not seem sensible to you to just go to a university that teaches in your language? I don't understand. I don't understand what the problem is with these people. And it is very hard for me to understand why they would want to burn down a university for teaching in a language that they advertise that they teach in. It just makes no sense to me whatsoever. However, these black people, they just find it necessary to destroy everything that has been built for them. And burn it down. And then the next protest will be because there's no education possible for them. So they will protest about that and burn other universities down. They've done this in the last couple of months repeatedly with the train service in South Africa. Many blacks use the trains for commuter service to get to their jobs in the morning. And the other day a train was late, so they burnt the entire train down. They also try and pile onto those trains, as you have seen probably in India, where they ride even on the roof of the trains and hanging out the windows. So if the train is too full or if the train is late, they burn the train. And then the next day, of course, there's a shortage of trains, and they then burn some more trains. So in order to replace the trains that have been burnt, the Railway Association then ordered billions of rands worth of trains. But the person in charge of the railways in South Africa is a black man who said in his CV and was hired as a top engineer. However, it has turned out that he is not an engineer. He has no qualifications whatsoever, and he bought these trains despite all input from the supplier and from other people telling him that the trains would not fit under the tunnels, etc., in South Africa. So they have spent all of this money. They have these trains standing by, and they will never, ever be able to run in South Africa. So I just cannot understand what is going on in that country, where the money is supposed to come from, and how they are wasting it at such an extreme rate. It is frightening, people, that so many people in top leadership positions in the government, in every top position in South Africa, is lying about their qualifications to do the job. And yet they are earning high salaries and sitting by and doing nothing except waste money. The parliament in South Africa has more people to rule a country a little bigger than Texas than the whole Congress in America has. They earn bigger salaries. Our President Zuma earns about 10 times what President Obama earns. It is just an incredible state of affairs. And yet, they are fit to rule the country. Our president in South Africa has, at last count, 4 wives, and even he can't tell you how many children he has, although it numbers over 20. There's no stop. And as I understand it, polygamy is not legal in South Africa. But the president has that many wives. And then he has no education whatsoever. He was a goat herd and was taught to read and write by a person who had no qualifications to do that either. So all his school consists of is reading and writing. And this man is qualified to lead a country through a time of turmoil and financial hardship for everybody, and is paid a fortune to do it. Then again, in South Africa, as I understand it, and I may be wrong in the absolute figure, I believe there are 11 kings in South Africa who are paid also a fortune by the taxpayer to do nothing, to literally be useless in South Africa, because they don't contribute to the economy. They don't contribute to the political discussion. They do nothing except marry dozens of wives and rule over enormous pieces of land where they are sole kings. And now, in South Africa, the chiefs are stepping up and saying they want the same salaries as the kings are earning. So how are a small handful of taxpayers supposed to support this lifestyle of the political elite who have no qualifications and really are running the country into the ground. The other thing that strikes me as strange is the witch doctors. The black South African will claim that South Africa is a religious, a Christian nation, and yet they all go to the witch doctor. In fact, the president has admitted that he went to the witch doctor in order to be declared president. They will go to the witch doctor with all their problems and get a little piece of string to tie around their wrist or around their waist, which is supposed to cure them of all ills. And in a country where AIDS is prevalent and rape has unbelievably huge numbers. In fact, I understand that it's around 3,600 people a day get raped in South Africa. In that country, the Sangomas are telling their people that the cure for AIDS is to have sex with a virgin. Now, virgin in the black mind equates to a white baby. So the rape numbers for white babies or toddlers in South Africa is rising. How is this then a Christian country? It is unbelievable to me that the world sits by and watches, and Obama himself thinks that the emerging nations in Africa are the future of the world. It is just not possible to me that this could be seen in a as a Western paradigm and understood and accepted by the media, the press, and governments. Because South Africa, according to the UN and Amnesty International, is still a safe country to live in, which it is definitely not, as we all know. Which it is definitely not. So until they designated an unsafe country for whites, there is no hope for the whites there because they will not be given asylum or refugee status anywhere else in the world. So we need those people to declare South Africa as unsafe so people will be able to leave and be given asylum elsewhere. It is a very hard thing to be a white in South Africa today. And yes, I understand that apartheid had its problems. And I understand that apartheid was possibly a bit of a repressive regime. But what the world needs to understand about apartheid was that the blacks were really well looked after during the apartheid years. They were given their own homelands to live in, and not some desert piece of land where they couldn't survive. They were given prime hectarage to live on, where they were ruled by their own chiefs, by their own kings, under their own language, and the white taxpayer built for them hospitals, infrastructure, schools, universities, etc. They got an incredibly good in education during the apartheid years. And even the blacks are coming forward and saying that things were better during apartheid because everybody had work. They may have had to carry a pass to prove that they could be in certain areas that were white by night. But then the white South African had to carry an ID book, which was more or less the same thing, because in your white person's ID book was your name, your address, your marital status, and everything else to do with you. And you had to have that with you at all times. So I don't see that the Dompas, which was such a bad thing, according to the black people, I don't see that it really was, because the whites had to carry one as well. Although the penalties might not have been as steep if you didn't have one with you. But during the apartheid years, the small white population ensured that the blacks were taken care of. Their average age of life increased incredibly during that period. They had work. And by the way, the numbers increased astronomically. And if apartheid was so bad, why were people from all over Africa flowing into the country in search of a better life? So while I am not lauding apartheid or even saying that it was a great system, it seemed to be the sensible system for each race and each group of people to have their own area in which they could live, rule themselves, and speak their own language, rule themselves according to their way of life, because it is incredibly difficult to force people of different nations together and expect them to coexist when their views, morals, and lifestyles are so diametrically opposite. I think it is a form of racism in itself to try and force existence on people who have absolutely nothing in common. People, I am really, really sorry, but there seems no way again to get our guest onto the show. It doesn't matter what we try, a Skype button is not coming up for them. So I'm going to have to try and resolve this issue with Blog Talk themselves. And I am really, really incredibly apologetic that we couldn't do this a second time. I don't know what to tell you, and I don't know what to say about it. I'm really very, very sorry, people. I've kept you entertained for 3/4 of an hour, I hope. I have given you as much as I'm able to give today because my health is also failing and I'm not feeling very well. So I think the best thing to do would be to play out. Thank you for your patience. Apologize once again. Promise you that our next episode on Saturday will not be like this. Our guest on Saturday will be the media person from South African Family Relief Project, and I promise you that we will not have these problems. I am going to play out with the old national anthem of South Africa, the stem. Thank you, people, for listening. Thank you for dialing in. Thank you for being there, and thank you for your patience. God bless the USA. God bless South Africa. And God help the world that we find ourselves living in today.